Hey folks, this is Johnny again with HST for PreSonus and Studio 1.4, which has just an amazing amount of features. And here's another one of my favorites, and this one involves an actual PreSonus VST instrument that is here in the browser. And if you guys are looking at the screenshots here, I'm going to extend the browser just a little bit here. I'm going to go to Instruments. And let's see if I can locate it here. It is the impact player. Okay, there's no little icon here, so I'm going to make it real easy. And I'm going to double click on my drum track. And this is something we're going to go through in a second. And here is Impact XT. Now, if it didn't look cool enough already, you could click this little icon right here. You can really customize it. I got to talk to the engineers now about doing this for my tie and presence because it's just too cool to look at. So you've got a lot of visual changes here to Impact XT. You've got more editing features for each individual pad. You also have the ability to colorize all of your pads. You also have 8 banks of 16 pads per drum kit. Now this is really nice if you're doing loop production or you're doing some productions for, like, say, radio drop-ins. You can put in all your sound effects and all of your music beds and everything in Impact and trigger them from a keyboard. And you've got 8 banks of 16 pads to do that. This is also great for drummers like myself who do drum design and drum kit creation. Creating custom drum kits for Studio One, and for clients if you're doing custom drum kits for their music. You have the ability now to get more than just 16 pads in there. You can actually load either a number of different drum kits or different versions of each sound for real good dynamic control. Each pad in Impact offers you an array of velocity levels that you can put that you can bring into Impact by doing an alt drag from your browser, and you can actually start building up the layers of a single pad for a single sound. So let's say, like in this here, let me find my snare drum here. There, the snare. You can see that I have 7 layers of velocity sensitivity going from the lightest hit all the way up to the hardest hit. And you can really hear the change in velocity. Now, since I have them in order, anybody on a V-drum kit or playing with the velocity-sensitive keyboard, you can get all of those dynamics when you do your drum tracks. All right, so now if you look on the right-hand side here, not only do you see the ability here to colorize your pads, but you also see a lot of stuff that wasn't in the old Impact, especially the amount of choke groups. And now this is really good for choking hi-hat sounds. So you have an open, a foot, and then a strike, and you can put them all in the same choke group so that when you play a hi-hat, you can get the dynamics out of the hi-hat and all of the performance of a real hi-hat. You also have, and this is new to Impact, you have a layer mode that you can now choose, and this gives you all of the articulation that you need for actual performance drums with using Impact. You can do the velocity one, which is the one that I use. If you're triggering a lot of sound effects, you can choose round robin, where if it's like if it's an audience sound effect, you can put it on round robin and it'll keep repeating it. You also have a random a random pad which will randomly select the different velocity layers. So if you decide not to use the layers as velocity sense, you can actually put different types of samples. So every time you hit the pad, it's maybe a different part of the audience actually clapping. And then you've got the stack ability, and that it keeps repeating the same loop with each strike if you're using it for that. I usually keep it on velocity so that I can get my natural dynamics in my hi-hats. You also have the ability to quantize. You can also have Impact follow a tempo. Now, this is important. If you have a loop that you've brought in that has a particular tempo, the data the tempo data needs to be written to the file, you can actually put it on follow tempo, and then that loop's tempo will follow the tempo of your song. So that's really nice. And then, of course, you have things like, let's see, this one here. This is the start and the end of a particular sample on a pad. You can adjust that to really narrow it down. And then, of course, you have the ability to see the actual waveform of the samples that you're bringing in. And I can zoom in on them to really see. You can get really in there. You can edit them. You can see I can actually take the loop and edit it. It's very much like the Akai MPC, to where you can really get in and break down your loops and samples. Okay, so Impact also works really well with another new feature that is in Studio One, and that is the drum editor. And this is something that many people have been asking for a very long time. There are a couple of other DAWs that have features similar to this, but I really think PreSonus went above and beyond on this one. You can see here that with drum MIDI tracks, or instrument tracks as they're called in Studio One, this is what it used to look like. So this would be for your regular keyboard MIDI. And with drums, it's important to know that you really don't need to see the length of the MIDI note, because a drum hit is just a single strike. You don't need to, there's no sustain, there's nothing like that, because they always tail out no matter how long you press the button. So this gives people a really good visual of the drum editor, very much like a couple of other DAWs that have this. You can zoom in this way. And you can also zoom in this way, just like that. Look at this. You can get a really good visual of the drum hits like this, and they are just the triangles like that. You can right-click on any of the nodes inside the drum editor, and you can pull up all of the musical functions, and you can choose what you want to do. You can select groups. You can do a control all, to where you can highlight the entire MIDI drum track, or you can do like I just did here, highlight a bunch of them, select, do a right click on any one of them, and then go into your musical functions and be able to do all of that editing. And of course, this is cool too. You have your patch names going around right here. This particular one I didn't name. This is one of my custom drum kits. I haven't named the patches yet. But one of the things that you can do, like let's say you want to highlight all of the hi-hats, you can hold, I think it's Control. I'm on a Mac right now. No, it's not Control. It must be Command. There we go. You can hit and hold Command and then click on the particular patch name, or in this case, since I've just got a blank space, you can highlight all of the instruments or all of the performance data for a single instrument, which is really nice if you want to turn up a hi-hat but lower the open part of the hi-hat, since they're going to be all on their own patch names. You can really adjust that setting in there for the drum editor. And then, of course, it just really has a nice view. It's going to give you the ability to really go through a drum track, like here's some heavy parts with some heavy fills. You can choose to snap to grid. You don't have to snap to grid. You can choose input quantize, which will actually quantize to the grid while you're playing, or you can turn that off and then you can quantize later. So you can even take certain notes, and you can see it opens up the data box here in the inspector on the left hand side, and you can choose everything from velocity to the start and end of a particular note for getting it right in position, and do some like really micro editing in order to be able to move a drum hit maybe a little off the grid if you're trying to program flams and things like that. And that is the drum editor, which is brand new to Studio One 3, works hand in hand with Impact, really well with Impact. You can have the drum editor open while you're programming in Impact and see where all the notes are being placed during the performance and during the recording, and you can adjust accordingly. So those are just a few of the drummer special features that I think a lot of drummers are going to like, being able to use Impact, and people that like to use the old Akai MPC programming external devices, you now have most of those features now in Impact XT. So I hope that was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.